welcome back to This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. You can find more info and more podcasts at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey, this is Steve White, your host for another trip around the memory cul-de-sac. It's July 23rd, and on this day in 1989, American Greg LeMond pulled off an incredible come-from-behind win to win his second Tour de France. LeMond came into the final day of the Tour 50 seconds behind France's Laurent Fignon. LeMond had attacked Fignon on the final mountain stage 2 days before, but Fignon had been able to mark him and keep the American from taking any time off him. Now, for the uninitiated in Grand Tour bicycle races, to win a Grand Tour, you have to typically be a good climber and a good time trialist. The sprinters are fun to watch, but when a stage ends, you're given the same time as the group you're in. So you can finish in 80th place, but if the pack is all connected, then you get the same time as the first guy who crossed the finish line. Most time gains can be made during mountain stages or in a time trial, which is a race against the clock. Each cyclist rides alone, starting 2 minutes apart from each other. No drafting accepted. And that's what this final stage was in the '89 Tour, a 24.5-kilometer time trial, or a little over 15 miles. But 50 seconds was a big gap to overcome in just 15 miles. Nobody outside of LeMond himself thought it possible. He started second to last on this day. Fignon was the final starter. When LeMond rolled down the start ramp, he was wearing an aerodynamic helmet, and for the first time in Tour history, aero bars that put him in a Superman position on the bike. It was more aerodynamic, and he also had a disc rear wheel with a regular spoke wheel on the front. The bespectacled Fignon rolled down the start ramp 2 minutes later with his blonde hair tied back in a ponytail, and disc wheels on both front and back wheels. Now, disc wheels are used in time trials to be more aerodynamic, but the decision to go with 2 disc wheels may have proven to be a mistake. A crosswind can push the bike sideways and actually slow down a bike with disc wheels. LeMond was one of the top time trialists in the world at this point and turned the pedals over in smooth yet powerful fashion. When he crossed the line, his average speed was a new Tour record of 34 miles per hour. And then the wait began. 2 minutes went by. The original starting gap. 30 seconds. 40 seconds. And when the clock ticked over to 51 seconds, LeMond could celebrate. He had done it. Fignon crossed the line 58 seconds slower than LeMond's time. The final margin of 8 seconds was, and still is, the closest margin of victory ever in the Tour de France. But Fignon was not happy. He complained that the bars LeMond used were illegal. But the win stood. The thing that made an already amazing story even more amazing, though, LeMond had actually been accidentally shot in April 1987 when he had been out turkey hunting with his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law shot blindly through a bush at a noise he thought had been made by a turkey. Instead, it was LeMond, and he hit LeMond with about 60 pellets. LeMond lost about 65% of his blood by the time that he had been airlifted to the closest hospital. He'd been about 20 minutes away from bleeding to death, according to his surgeon. Now, he hid the news of his accident from his cycling team, fearing they would drop his contract if they found out about it. A lot of big golf moments happened on this day in past years. Back in 2000, it was Tiger Woods winning his first British Open and in the process becoming the youngest golfer to capture all 4 golf majors, called the Career Slam. This was also the second leg of what would become called the Tiger Slam the following April when he won the Masters, becoming the first golfer to hold all 4 major golf trophies at the same time. On this day, Tiger tamed the old course at St. Andrews and destroyed the rest of the field. He shot a 69 to close out his round on this day. He had been the only golfer to card scores in the 60s all 4 rounds, to win by 8 shots over Thomas Bjorn and Ernie Els. His 19-under 269 set a scoring record in relation to par in a major tournament, and at 24 years of age, bested Jack Nicklaus's record for collecting all 4 majors in a career by 2 years. In 2006, Tiger won his 3rd British Open championship, and this one was extra special. His father, Earl, who had given him the name Tiger and taught him the game, pushed him to keep working on his game, had died in May. His 4-day walk around Royal Liverpool was a tribute to his dad, but it was not as easy as he'd made it look in 2000. He started the day just a shot up on Ernie Els, Sergio Garcia, and Chris DeMarco. Woods had an eagle on the 5th and then a flurry of 3 straight birdies on 14, 15, and 16 to shoot a final round 67 to get to 18 under. One shot off his record he'd set 6 years before, and he won by 2 shots over DeMarco. When he sank his par putt on the 18th, the emotion finally hit him in full, and he buried his face in caddy Steve Williams' shoulder, tears flowing down his cheeks. His wife, at the time, Elin Nordegren, rushed on the green, and his tears continued for a few more moments. A few minutes later, he said that he wished that his dad could have seen him win just one more. And now in 1995, when John Daly won his first British Open and his second major championship. This one was also played on the old course at St. Andrews. Daly started the day 4 shots back of leader Michael Campbell and 2 down of Italy's Constantino Rocca. He birdied 3 holes on the front 9 and did some scoreboard watching. What he saw was Campbell playing in the final group with Rocca, sliding back to him. By the time Big John holed out on the 18th, he had a 1-shot lead over Rocca and a 2-shot advantage over Campbell, and he had to watch and wait. After Rocca chili dipped his second shot on the 18th, he was left with a 60-foot putt through the Valley of Sin to send it to a playoff. There was surely no way he was going to make that. Campbell's second shot from the fairway did not find the bottom of the cup, and so that left the improbable up a hill, down a hill, left to right putt as the only thing separating John Daly from the claret jug. And yet, Rocca stepped up and hit it dead center. So that meant a 4-hole aggregate playoff. They played holes 1, 2, 17, known as the road hole, and 18. Daly birdied the second to take the lead, and then Rocca collapsed on the 3rd playoff hole, hitting his second shot in the road bunker and taking 3 shots to get out of it. A triple bogey made it a 5-shot deficit for Rocca coming to the final, and after Daly rolled in his par putt, he had won his first and only claret jug. In 1939, the Philadelphia Athletics backup catcher Harry O'Neill caught the bottom of the 8th in a blowout loss against the Detroit Tigers. But he didn't have a plate appearance in the 9th, and similar to Moonlight Graham that we talked about a few weeks ago, this was the only game that he appeared in as a major leaguer. But unlike Moonlight, this story does not have a happy ending. O'Neill became one of 500 major leaguers that signed up to fight in World War II. He was killed on Iwo Jima in March 1945. He, along with Washington's Elmer Gedeon, are the only 2 Major League Baseball players who were killed in the war. And in 1996, 18-year-old Kerri Strug thrilled the world with her courage and grit when she not only decided to attempt a second vault despite a severely sprained left ankle, but she stuck the landing. Heading into this moment, the U.S. women's gymnastics team, known as the Magnificent Seven, was trailing the Russians. That wasn't too much of a surprise, considering the Russians had won every women's gymnastics team gold medal since 1952. Moments before, Strug had landed awkwardly and fell on her first vault, rolling her left ankle. There was a sharp pain rippling up through her entire body when she attempted to stand. She knew she had one more vault left, but at first didn't know if it would even be possible to walk, let alone sprint to the springboard, launch 15 feet into the air, and then land on this ankle that she now could barely put pressure on. A hobble, or worse, another fall, and it would be mostly pointless. But she felt like the pain of not trying and wondering what if would be more painful in the long run than a few more minutes of the lightning bolts in her left ankle. So she did it. Sprint, springboard, launch, and when she landed, she heard and felt a crunch in that same ankle, and it was more excruciating than before. But she stuck it, arms in the air, left ankle elevated, and now came the wait for the judges' scores. She needed at least a 9.6. Instead, it was a 9.712 to secure the gold medal for the American women. X-rays later revealed 2 torn ligaments and a severe 3rd-degree sprain. The doctor who looked at it could not believe she had been able to do what she had just done. And time now for today's non-sports Did You Know? Did you know there used to be a National Raisin Reserve? It was created after World War II by the government in order to control raisin prices and stipulated farmers had to withhold a portion of their crop and contribute it to the reserve. It was initially repealed in 2003 and completely ended in 2015. That's all for today. Come on back tomorrow and I'll have more This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.